Welcome to the show that takes up no more than 5 minutes of your time, but could help you gain massive real estate knowledge. It's 5 Minutes in Real Estate with best-selling author Shane Willis.
Good morning, this is Shane Willis, Pensacola real estate expert, bringing you today's episode. Today we're going to talk some numbers, maybe a little bit longer podcast, but I want to make sure I get some numbers out there because there's a lot of myths going on, and there's a few arguments you can make, but you can't argue with the law of math. So I want to get some facts instead of just myths or thoughts out there. I do a lot of trading in a lot of different markets. I do equity trading, stocks, bonds. I do commodity trading, so cattle, corn, oil, gas, and I have experts that I rely on in all of these categories. I'm the real estate guy. I know enough about commodities to hold a really good, intelligent conversation. That bird is trying to interrupt my podcast. It's my podcast. Hush. I know you're happy. It's May. Shh. Okay. That's what we got. That's what he's got to say anyways. I've got experts that I rely on a lot. One of the guys that does commodities, man, this guy's on Fox Business all the time. Him and I talk pretty much every morning because there's different trades, there's different ways the market's flowing, there's different things that are happening, and so we've got to catch up and make a strategy for the day. It's usually a short conversation, but it's something that has to happen. One of the reasons I bring that up is because I also keep an eye on what's going on around the world because of those conversations I know I'm going to have every morning with my commodity broker / coach, because he's been doing it a lot longer than I have. It's just like me talking about real estate. You know, he calls me up sometimes asking questions about real estate because I've been doing it a lot longer than he has. Anyways, I keep up with this stuff, so I know that, you know, tomorrow we're looking for the employment numbers. That'll definitely play a factor in what happens with tomorrow's market. I'm actually setting up a couple of trades today to make that happen. And I know today over in Beijing we're starting the China-U.S. trade talks. China's starting to take a little hard nose on what's going on what our current president is requesting or demanding from them. So that should be interesting, and that should affect the markets. But out of all of that, when we get back to the real estate side, you start to hear a lot of people asking, is this 2006 all over again? And I've heard that multiple news outlets. I've heard that at gatherings that I've been in. For most of you know that I just did a Spartan race, and I was in a wedding. And I heard that as I started talking to a lot of people. So that's not something that's just coming out of the newscast. That's something that's apparently in a lot of people's minds. You know, are we back in 2006 again? Are we going to make the same mistakes? I've started to hear people going, you know what, I'm not going to buy right now, Shane. I'm just going to wait because it's all going to crash again in 2 years. Really? Yeah, because we're back at 2006 prices. Okay, so that is a data point that we're going to discuss today, but it's a data point that is kind of out of context. So today I kind of wanted to say why. I'm going to go 4 reasons. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why it's really not 2006 all over again. Okay, what have we done? What have we learned? The first one, home prices. That data is what everybody's grabbing onto to say, hey, you know, it's about to crash because we're back to 2006 prices again. And in a lot of markets we are. So it's not a lie. It's not a wrong piece of data. It's just interpreted wrong. So we're at 2006 prices. You're correct. We are. But the chief economist over at CoreLogic brought out something, said, hey, if you account for inflation, which should be accounted because our numbers are actually right about normal, back to that 2%, if you count inflation in over the 11 and a half years, we're actually 18% below 2006. So you can't count one without the other. You remember that old algebra stuff when you do on one side of the equation mark, on the equal mark, you got to do on the other side? Yeah, you can't count one without the other, but there's so many people out there that are counting we are back at 2006, but you're not counting in the inflation part. If you don't count in the inflation part, well, it just doesn't make sense. So that is one section. Although the houses are at the 2006 mark, you've got to get inflation. All right, the next one, that's home prices. I told you I'd give you 4 today. Mortgage standards. Mortgage standards. I owned a mortgage company back in the heyday, so I know what the standards were. But let me kind of talk to you. It says banks are easing their lending practices. So people are worried right now that banks are actually easing their lending practices some. That's true to an extent. But I've got a graph that if you're getting the tips, tricks, graphs, these are the graphs you want to take a look at. It goes over the Urban Institute Housing Finance Policy Centers. They issue a Housing Credit Availability Index. They issue that, I think, quarterly. And so it come up this time. And if you actually look at the graph, there are, well, let me explain the index. The index basically says that if a mortgage lender is willing to take more risk, the less people they have 90 days late. So if a mortgage looks like it could potentially go 90 days late, they will start to tighten their lending standards. Looks like it's going to go more, they will start to loosen some. Have we loosened some? Yes. But if you looked at the Housing Availability Credit Index that was produced by these guys, 2007, 2008 was quadruple. 2006, 2007, right into 2008 was quadruple the risk the banks are willing to take right now than they are right now. So although, think of it like this, think of it like a pendulum. We had an issue when, and I just call it lightly an issue, when the housing market crashed. Right before it crashed, it was too easy to get a mortgage. So the pendulum was swung way too far the other way, way too far. So afterwards, the pendulum swung way too far back and it was too difficult to get a mortgage. You had to have much higher credit scores. Your income had to be spot on. They made some other rules that they really wanted to kind of tighten things up. We had to. We had gotten too crazy, it was too loose. So the pendulum had to swing all the way back. But if you look at it now, the pendulum peaked on the other side, too conservative. It has started to swing back to the middle, which is where it needs to be. But it's not even there yet. We're not in the middle right now. Yes, it is a little easier to get a loan today than it was 4 years ago. That is true. And that's because the banks are seeing better balance sheets. But that affordability index that showed up, and I'll make sure you get a copy of that, shows that we are well under what it was 2006, 2007 during the bubble. Mortgage debt. That's the third one. I said I was going to go over 4. That's the third one. Mortgage debt. The best indicator of mortgage debt is the Federal Reserve Board's Household Debt Service Ratio Report. So I've got a copy of the Fed report for you. This one's going to be a link there too. At the height of the bubble, I'm going to read what I wrote. At the height of the bubble market a decade ago, the ratio stood at 7.21%. This is the mortgage debt as a percentage of disposable personal income. That means over 7% of disposable personal income was being spent on the mortgage payment. Over 7% of disposable income is after you pay all your other bills. Over 7% was being spent on mortgages. We're spending too much on mortgages. Today, are we still in 2006? Are we worried about it? No, today's under 4.5. Under 4.5. That's a huge, huge difference. So no, we're not 2006. Yes, prices have risen. Remember I said they were going to tack onto one aspect, but you can't argue with the law of math. Here's the law of math saying no. It was over 7, now it's under 4.5. And finally, housing affordability. The housing affordability. There's another index that's put out by the National Association of Realtors. You know that even though we're back in 2006, when you calculate inflation, remember you can't do one without the other. Welcome to basic algebra. When you calculate that, houses are more affordable now than since 1985. Everybody's going to look and they're going to that made me scratch my head for just a second, because I think the same way everybody else does. Wait a minute, they were less expensive 2, 3, 4 years ago. That's true. But affordability is still less than it was, way less than the bubble. So, 4 reasons. This is not 2006. We're not making the same mistakes. We just aren't. We've kind of learned as a nation. Now, if the next generation doesn't learn, could they potentially make the same mistakes 30 years ago? Or 30 years from now, of course. But are we making it right now? No. No, we're not. And there's 4 reasons. 1, home prices. Although they are back to 2006 levels, if you take into inflation, they are not. They are still 18% below that 2006 bubble. Mortgage standards, they're starting to swing back. That pendulum is starting to swing back. But it's nowhere near the middle and nowhere near crazy where it was in 2006. Mortgage debt, instead of 7 point something over disposable income, we're at 4.5. That's a huge difference when it comes to disposable income. And housing affordability, the cheapest since 1985, especially with the mortgage rates the way they are right now. All right, it's not 2006 all over again, guys. Now it's time to still stay in real estate. I know I talked about trading in other assets, and you should learn about other assets. But real estate should be a real core holding, whether it be your home, investment properties, a combination of both. All right, that's all I got for you today. Make sure you are getting signed up to get tips, tricks, graphs. Today's episode, there's going to be a lot of graphs. I think I got graphs for almost every one of those 4. So you can physically see what I'm talking about today. Get over to 5minutesinrealestate.com. That's 5minutesinrealestate.com. Get signed up. I'll send you the emails today, and you'll start getting the tips, tricks. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, get over to iTunes or Google Play. Look up Minutes Real Estate. That's usually the search that I do. It should be easy to find us. Give us a thumbs up. Make sure you get subscribed. Give us a thumbs up. Would love a nice comment. And finally, if you found any value in this, and I know that you did, I don't ask for payments, but I do, however, ask that you share this on social media. All right, guys, it's Thursday, and we're coming up on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Y'all have a good one.